You spoke out pretty vocally after January 6th. One thing I find really fascinating is when you go back and look, let's say, at Fox News coverage of that day, everyone is horrified.
Mm-hmm. We're supposed to be the gate, the non-left, the Republicans, the libertarians, the conservatives. We're supposed to be the gate against the barbarians. And yesterday, we looked like the barbarians.
I want to be clear. The actions at the United States Capitol 3 days ago were deplorable, reprehensible, outright criminal.
You can't smash windows, spray police with chemical agents, assault police officers, loot, and vandalize. An unarmed woman was shot dead. And what did it accomplish? It accomplished absolutely nothing.
And in the months afterwards, somehow they got over that. And now there's this big kind of whitewashing campaign about the events of that day. I feel like you have a very good sense of the way Trump voters think. Mm. And I think at the time, after January 6th, Trump was considered over. Mm-hmm. It was considered done. And, you had Lindsey Graham declaring that in the House. You had McCarthy. And then somehow Trump came back, and now he's, according to the polls, very likely the next president of the United States. Yeah. Again, how do you think that happened?
I think it's a number of factors. I think the right-wing media re-embraced him because I think he's excellent for ratings. He's ratings gold. I think that was a business decision and calculation that was made because I can tell you, I appeared on Fox News a number of times. I was on the day after January 6th to condemn it, to say he should not be president again. I actually said that he should be removed from office or resign. And for a while, I would still appear, and I remember being on as he came back to speak at CPAC, and that was his first big foray back into the public stage. And I was never asked back again. And I don't, no hard feelings. It wouldn't be the right place for me. But I think that there was a turning point where they're like, oh, okay, he's coming back. But I think a big factor was elected Republicans. I think they saw that a lot of their supporters and base were still with him, and they were quick to re-embrace him. I think of Kevin McCarthy, panhandling at Mar-a-Lago. Right. Rick Scott did the same. And I do think I never blame Trump voters. Most of my family are Trump voters. When they believe things like that the election was stolen or that January 6th was actually Antifa and the left-wing mob, because that's being reinforced to them by people in places of public trust, whether it's the media or it's their elected representatives. And honestly, I don't know the key way to combat that. I try to, on a more personal level, just being like, well, listen, these are people. A lot of them have now been arrested, they've gone on trial, and they've said they were there for Donald Trump. They're admittedly there because of being Trump supporters. But yeah, the great whitewashing of January 6th is wild.
Wild.
I mean, you can't don't sleep on the Tucker Carlson factor of it. You might as well be an agent of the Kremlin on Fox News, the most watched man in cable news for several years, rehabilitating Trump, damaging our efforts with Ukraine, and completely lying about that day.
Right.
I mean, that's a really powerful platform.
Yeah, he was extraordinarily powerful and very dishonest from that perch.
Just wildly dishonest.
Yeah.
They were peaceful, they were orderly and meek. These were not insurrectionists, they were sightseers. Footage from inside the Capitol overturns the story you've heard about January 6th.
I mean, honestly, editorially, how they got away with it, I mean, I guess they didn't. You've got the Dominion settlement, but he was one of the most dangerous men on television. And, I wish him luck in whatever basement in Maine he's in.
Well, you talk to people at Fox at the time, and they would always say, yeah, it's crazy that this is being allowed on the air. They recognized it. And now I don't think he's nearly as influential as he was on
he's
Fox.
Not. And that does say something. A lot of these huge figures at Fox, once they leave, they don't get the same. Bill O'Reilly, it's the same
I thought
thing.
he would be a different kind of deal because he really had a following in a way that others didn't. But, they're just Twitter views are not cable news ratings.
No, they're
Cable
not.
news ratings are far bigger than people assume.
Yeah.
It means a lot when millions of people concurrently are watching your show. That's a huge audience.